was 16 or 17 years old, and I was out with a bunch of friends, and we thought it would be interesting and exciting to go to a graveyard that one of my friends was talking about. It was 2 in the morning, you know. We had all been drinking just a little bit, not to the point where we were, you know, out of control drunk, but we had all been drinking. There was about 15 of us, and we all headed towards the Fairview district of the Hayward Hills. There is Lone Tree Cemetery, which was a cemetery until that point I thought I had never been to. I didn't know that I had been here before when I was a young kid, and that's kind of where the story begins. So we drive up here and we all park along that street out there, and this gate right here is where we climb the fence late in the night, early in the morning, and we start walking around. We come up the street and we want to visit these nice crypts, and we're walking along this area, and then all of us, there's 15 of us now, all of us are walking and we're talking and we're laughing and goofing off, and then we see something really strange. Now we look up at the sky, and it's, you know, a cloudy night in the winter, so there's no moon. I remember that clearly. There was no moon. Now, looking that way, there are no streets, and there's just houses up in the hill. Everything else way over there is just hills that are vacant, you know, cows, that kind of stuff. And we get to right around this point, and I clearly remember right straight ahead, around where that cross is, right in the middle of the screen, we see this glowing object. And we all stop right here, and we all freeze. We look at each other, and we start to walk backwards. And the glowing object's still there. We all get scared as hell, and we just start running down the hill and exiting. Now, I emphasize that there was no moon because I remember that clearly. There was no moon. That was the first thing that we tried to like debunk with was, oh, maybe it was moonlight hitting a tombstone or something of that sort. And if it just wasn't, it was impossible for it to be moonlight. Now, there's nothing else around that creates any light. There are no street lights here. We're off the street. The street is that way and that way. And even if it was a street like a car light, it would have went this way. And there's no way that I would hit that stone that is turned sideways facing out there. Now, if it was a glare, it would have had to have come from up here, which is just a creepy hill. There's nothing up there. So it didn't have a shape. It didn't have any kind of form. It was just a glowing object. I don't know, it was kind of human-like, but it was just creepy as hell. And we know that we saw something. We don't know what it was, but it wasn't something natural. So now where it gets weird is 2 months later. 2 months later, my grandmother passed away. And you know, we go to the funeral, me and a couple of the buddies that were there, 2 of them actually, Eric and Chris. And they come to the funeral with me. And we start driving to the site where the cemetery is. And I remember as we enter the entrance and we're pulling up, we look at each other with this weird look on our face. We knew something weird, like, oh my God, you know, we had all been here once, and we know what happened the last time we were here. So we pull in, we don't say anything to each other. We start driving in. We drive down the little road that goes in, and we park right about where my bug is, okay? And that's the site of where, at the time, I didn't know, but that's where my grandmother was going to be buried, right near that tree behind the bug. And that was where my grandfather was buried in 1985. So in 1985, I was 7 years old. I don't remember being here. I remember him passing away. I don't remember the funeral at all. So we immediately parked, we got out, we looked at each other, and then we referenced where we were geography-wise in the cemetery. It's a big cemetery. You guys saw it, did a walkthrough. Well, there is where I'm parked, and right here, maybe 40 yards away, is where we saw that image. So we didn't say anything during the burial and everything, memorial. But then as soon as we got home, we all looked at each other and said, "Were you thinking the same thing I was thinking?" It was just creepy. So ever since that day, I've always had a sense that that glowing figure that I saw was possibly my grandfather. I don't know. It's unlikely, but you know, it's just one of those eerie feelings you have where when, you know, you just have this gut feeling of something that, you know, you just go with it. And I have a strong feeling that that might have been my grandfather we saw, or some kind of apparition of him, or I don't know what it was, but it was just a very eerie feeling. So yeah, I don't know, to this day we still talk about it. And we all come to the same conclusion that, you know, we think that that was probably my grandfather we saw, you know, in the graveyard. Some kind of apparition of him standing there, watching over us, whether he was telling us to leave or, you know, just knew we were there, or knew I was there. Very strange. So that's my ghost story. I know you guys all have yours, so comment below, tell me about yours. Or comment online, tell me what you think I saw. You know, just again for reference, straight ahead in line, right about where these orange flowers are, is where my grandfather and grandmother are buried. And right there is where we saw the apparition. So it's not very far away. It's literally just around the corner. So, I don't know, we thought it was strange, but I thought it was time for me to share my ghost story with you guys.